So the first example I've chosen is maths, and it's looking at fractions. It's entry level 3, level 1. It was developed quite a long time ago, back in 2008, by what was then the LLU Plus. And this was it's called the OLAS Numeracy cell packs. Of course, we don't talk about OLAS anymore, but the idea was that there would be packs developed for each prisoner, which contained a set of resources, which we're going to look through now, and that they were self-contained. And there are some features of this that I think would be really helpful to build on, some that I think are going to be almost impossible in the current climate, but we could think of some alternatives. So this first activity is called Which Fraction is Bigger? And the first thing I want to say is that it's quite appealing from a readability point of view. Maybe we don't like the use of Comic Sans, it's a bit childish, but that would be easy to rectify. And there's clarity in terms of the readability of the letters. There's not too much information on the page. Just scroll down, you can see that it's quite well spaced out. There are no distracting images, sentences are nice and short and clear. I'm not suggesting that every prisoner will have reading challenges, but because this is pitched at entry 3, then we might assume that literacy levels, there may be some literacy challenges, so we don't want to make that less accessible than it needs to be. So there's a task, and we're going to have a look at that in a moment. Learners have to put fractions in order of size. I quite like the fact there's a tip on the screen here, although I think we could improve on that. It's an explanation or pointing out a key term, unit fractions. It says, do you know what this means? I think it would be helpful somewhere to define the answer to that question. So this is a reflective question that was designed to open up discussion, perhaps with a learner and their wing tutor. But in your case, I think you would need a little crib sheet at the back that gave some answers. But what I thought was interesting here is that it's almost about predicting questions that learners might have. You're not going to be there to answer them. So how could you ensure that included within the materials are some of the key questions or misconceptions that your experience has shown you learners tend to have when, for example, looking at the topic of fractions? I just want to show you how this would work. The idea was, we'll come back to these questions in a moment. Learners would be given fraction cards and they have to move them in order of size. Now, I just can't see the practicalities of creating little cards for every prisoner at the moment. So the first thing perhaps you need to rethink is, would you put this in a list and then give learners a space where they could write the fractions in order on that list so that they didn't have to move cards? I know card activities are really powerful. They allow learners to do things with their hands. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake because you can move the card again, but I just can't see how you could do this at the moment. What I quite like about this though is a place where you can go and check your understanding of key concepts. So learners are provided with a fraction wall, and for those of you who teach maths, you'll know that there are a lot of learners who struggle with the idea that a third is a lot larger, for example, than a 12th. Or an 11th, as you can see on the screen. So this fraction wall provides a space where you can go in and check your own understanding of key concepts. Just scrolling back up for a moment, I also thought the questions here were quite interesting because they locate, in this case, the topic of fractions in the real world. So it asks, one of the fractions is 1 over 365. Can you think of a real life example of this fraction? A little clue in the second question, if you weren't sure, can you write a month as a fraction of a year? So just giving the context that we're looking at here, dates, what is a day as a fraction of a week, etc. So this gives learners a chance to think about fractions with a topic that they can relate to. If we just move on to another activity, again, sorry, just scroll up there. This is building on the last one. It's now grouping fractions. Again, learners are given different fraction cards, although I can see a really easy fix to that. You just simply give them the third sheet. I'm about to show you a list of fractions, and they can write those in. They were asked to place each card in its correct square on the table. What I like about this, if we just scroll up, there are the fractions that the learners will be having to deal with. And then the idea is they place them on the table. Just make that a bit smaller, you can see. They place them on the table. Which fraction is both less than a half and less than a quarter, greater than a 3/4, greater than a half. It's quite challenging. And for that reason, I think it'd be engaging. It provides a level of, you have to think about your answers to these questions. So having a degree of challenge, a bit like those of you who might enjoy Sudoku or something like that, something that gets you really thinking. And building on that further, here's a third activity. This time, learners are given a grid. I have to say, learners who use this really, they enjoy doing it. And so they're given a grid with the name of lots of different fractions. So this is a chance to consolidate their learning and compare different units. So here they compare fractions with decimals, percentages, money, time, weight and length. And again, this really gets you thinking. In the cell packs, these are actually provided as little cards that you can place on the map, but you could very easily write these in. And you could provide a sheet for checking where you get to choose from the sheet which things to put in the spaces. But also for those learners who need a little bit more challenge, just ask them to think of the answers themselves.